My name is Jere Witherspoon, and I am 54 years old. And although I don't consider myself to have a strong survivor story or a dramatic one, nonetheless, I have survived an emotionally abusive mother. I grew up in a Christian home, and although my parents loved me, I don't ever remember being unconditionally loved. My mother would not accept my opinions, and if I did anything wrong in her eyes, there was a lot of shame and a lot of condemnation, verbally and emotionally. I got married to my high school sweetheart, and the beginning of our marriage was pretty hard because of what I had seen modeled in my own parents. And while my mother was also very emotionally abusive to me, she was emotionally abusive to my father as well. When I was in high school, I found myself pregnant, not knowing really what to do. I had nobody to go to. My parents went to a church that was pretty much the same as them, and I knew that if I made this public, that I would be rejected and ridiculed and condemned. And so I hid my pregnancy in my sophomore year in high school for 6 months. I had only one person who lived 2,000 miles away who I could talk to, and I called my aunt, and in that phone call, of course, came the truth, and my mother's response was, "How could you do this to me?" Thankfully, we got advice, and I went to live in a home for unwed mothers in Los Angeles. And although I did not keep my baby, I gave him up for adoption. I never regretted that moment, and I know that he has the potential to have a better home than I could give him. But that's not the end of my story. As I continued to live with my parents, I then became promiscuous, and sex was a way of getting gratification and love that I felt like I wasn't getting at home. I married my high school sweetheart, and 7 years after a very tumultuous, can't say that word, beginning of our marriage, we gave birth to our first daughter at the age of 27. We were both 27. And I determined there and then that I was going to do things differently with my daughter. I wasn't going to shame her, and I wasn't going to ridicule her for her thoughts. Oh, I'm sure I wasn't perfect at that all the time, but that was my heart and that was my intention. And so that as she began to approach her teen years along with her sister who was 19 months younger, I really strived hard to discontinue the messages that I grew up with, to not repeat the same mistakes, to always tell them that I loved them no matter what, that there was nothing they could do that would make me not love them. And even as an adult, as a mom with adult children, all I have to do is look at their lives to see that I overcame the things that I grew up with shame and rejection at a time when you need your mom the most, at the time when you need someone to love you the most. See, I still cry about it. My mom and dad weren't there. How can you do that to your kids? And I am so proud of my daughters and my son, because they have taken hold of that unconditional love, and they're strong and they're capable. And I'm just so grateful that God helped me, along with my husband, to see that there was a better way, to see that there was a stronger way to raise your children so that they can be independent and full of love to give. So I am a survivor. I'm wounded still, but I'm happy. I'm joyful when I look at my children and I see that I didn't have to bring my parents' stuff into my own family, and that I could make a choice to change, and I could make a choice to give my children something better than I had. I still love my mom, and I've reconciled that I will never have the relationship with her that I long for. But I was able to live that relationship out with my children, and for that I am grateful. I am a survivor, and there is strength in my story.